Welcome to the Rainmaker Multiplier on Demand, a podcast for leading financial professionals, or rainmakers, and their teams that offer support for securing a successful future. From marketing help to staffing structure, listen and subscribe for actionable insights from advisors and skilled professionals alike.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's coffee break. Today, we'll be covering the topic differentiating yourself through marketing. We have a special guest barista today, Alanah Phillips, founder of Advisor Launch Lab and Break Up with Your Broker Dealer. Alanah wears a few different hats in the industry. Some of you have probably seen her around in her speaking tour, but all of which aim to help her network make more money while having fun. And we love that here. We know it's one of our core values at C2P. So I loved seeing that in your bio, Alanah. On top of her previously mentioned titles, she is the co-chair of Next Gen Advisory Task Force and co-founder of Catalyst, and is a seasoned speaker and recruiter. She champions innovative training and development for financial professionals, having mentored over 200 women and counting. Thank you very much for being here today, Alanah.
Thanks. I'm excited to be with y'all.
Yeah, and as we mentioned in the opening, please, as you think of things during the session today and want to drop either questions or messages in the chat, please do so, and we'll do our best to address each of those as we get going. But in the meantime, we'll jump into our questions. Alanah, in your vast experience that we mentioned in the opening there, what role does marketing play for financial advisors when it comes to their growth potential?
Yeah, this is a good question, Matt. It's fun because especially on the Advisor Launch Lab side, where we're bringing in brand new advisors, we're starting from zero, right? So they don't have an existing client base. We're trying to build out their client base. And we talk a lot about marketing and prospecting. And I use the illustration that is for anybody who's actually like a hunter or a fisher in the group, it probably falls apart, but illustrates the point to the new folks that we're working with, as well as the teams that we work with that may not have had to do marketing because they have an existing client base. But for the new folks, especially, we talk about marketing is really the stuff that attracts those clients to you, right? So we think about if you're fishing, you go out and you chum the water, right? Before you actually put your hook out into the water to try to catch fish, right? And that helps to attract a particular type of fish to you, depending on what you are chumming the water with, right? Your bait might matter also. And it also matters where you've gone out, right? If you're trying to catch salmon and you go out into a small lake that doesn't have salmon, you're not going to catch salmon, right? All of that matters in terms of the marketing piece. I think it's an important distinction for the folks who haven't had to do this in the past, why it's important now, and especially for our newer folks, the difference between the marketing that attracts and the prospecting that's the actual pulling the trigger, putting the hook in the water, the hunting. You have to do the marketing, though, to attract those potential clients.
Yeah, and I'm glad you started with that because we've talked about that in, I know, previous episodes or in our marketing roundtables we have at C2P is the different facets of marketing. There's the branding and the direct response, the lead generation and having that. And you started with, which we do in those, is the target market.
Yep. Yeah. You have to know who we're looking for.
Yeah. I know you mentioned like the salmon analogy, but yeah, you got to know who you're going after. Otherwise, you're casting that net and you might be going after the wrong crowd. So can you describe some of the most effective marketing practices you've observed amongst advisors affiliated with an RIA, and how do those practices contribute to their success?
Yeah. I think at the top of this, Matt, is like authenticity is so important. So there's definitely some constraints that happen depending on the firm that you're with, and it is more common in captive firms, broker dealers that have to solve for a common denominator of they've got so many advisors, they have to control what's happening and what's going out. And those things can put a constraint on how authentic you can be, right? Because bad example, but if you're somebody that likes to swear and you can't swear on your podcast, like you're losing an element of yourself because of those constraints from compliance. And I should pick a different example, but I think it illustrates the point. But if you cannot be your authentic self because you've got these bumpers that you have to work within, I think that it does limit how effective your marketing can be. I think about a couple of examples. One that really stands out to me is Melanin Money is a really cool example of some of the marketing stuff that they've done. If you don't follow them, they've got Instagram and LinkedIn, and then they do targeted ads on social that's geared towards their client demographic and really focused in. But everything that they do is fun, it's authentic. Their CPA who they work with will post stuff about his like vacations that he goes on and his work-life balance. And it accomplishes the things that I'm trying to remember. I've stolen this from somebody, but when you put content out, it has to be educational, it has to be aspirational, and it has to be entertaining. And if
Mm.
it's at least two of those three things, then usually it's effective. And so they do a great job, especially with the aspirational element, right? Here's what we want our clients to have. And they show them that in the content that they put out in a really authentic way for them.
Yeah. And I think you're going to add too, or maybe I could clarify, like personifying, like bringing what they're passionate about out in their brand. So if they're a sports enthusiast, like it's okay to make that part of your brand. Or if you're into fishing and I see that a lot in this industry, but bringing those into the brand elements and I guess even really the lead generation elements, because that's all tied together, right?
Oh, definitely so. Yeah. And I think I know as I talk to advisors, there's like a fear of sharing those things about yourself that we think are personal, right? My hobbies or
Yeah.
interests, the things that matter to me. But those are like, this is a personal business. Like money is very personal. Your relationship with your clients gets very personal, all the intimate details about their hobbies and how much money they spend on them. And
Right.
so when you share those things, it is something that allows you to attract the type of client that you want to work with or to build more connections with them, that you have these things in common, that you are also a human being and who has interests and sadnesses and family and hobbies and all those things. So I do think that's an important part of the marketing and branding strategies, even though I know some folks are afraid to share those more personal things about themselves.
Yeah, being vulnerable enough to open up because we all know that on this call. People want to work with people they know and trust. And what better way to build that rapport, like Alanah said, is make yourself vulnerable enough to share what you're passionate about with others. Because I think you'll find you'll tend to attract that back. That's how advisors build niches. That's the most natural way is build that with in the areas that you're passionate about.
For sure.
So, what specific strategies do you see RIA affiliate advisors employing to attract new prospects that might not be available or as effective in the broker dealer environment? Because I know that's obviously a specialty of yours with your company, but what are you seeing firsthand?
Yeah, I will say I think that this has converged quite a bit of what broker dealers will allow because they realize that they have to allow advisors to compete with those that were in a more flexible space. But still, I think about I have a woman who is going to the largest independent broker dealer, and she is a speaker and she talks about financial literacy. It's not even really related to her trying to find clients. It's just a part of her brand to promote financial education. And it was a to do to get this OBA approved. Again, I think the broker dealer space is solving for that lowest common denominator. They have so many advisors, they have to make sure that no one's getting into trouble, which is understandable. But the RIA space definitely allows for more flexibility in terms of creative marketing. So I think about advisors that are starting podcasts without having constraints or hoops to jump through, targeted ads on social media, right? Where you can on Facebook or in Google or on Instagram get so targeted to this specific ideal client avatar and get a message in front of them that's exactly what they're looking for. Probably all of us have experienced that. Or if you are not somebody who's on Instagram, it's just me who's getting targeted by all of these Amazon influencers and all their cute outfits. But advisors that are in the RIA space have that ability to really hone in on who they are talking to, which is so challenging to do if you don't have some of that tech SEO stuff behind it, which I certainly am not an expert in. I think about speaking engagements as another thing. There's so many different ways that I've watched advisors go out and get in front of a group, right? So instead of one to one, again, we're one to many in
Mhm.
all of these marketing methods and be able to talk about interesting topics, whether it is financial related or not. We have advisors who talk about avoiding cyber crimes as one of the things that they talk about. And it's so much easier when we are in an RIA space to not run into compliance challenges or somebody throwing up some sort of barrier for you to not be able to go out and do those types of events.
Those that want to get out and do more speaking, like you're mentioning, I know you do. Any tips for how to get started with that, to break out and hit that extended network?
Sure. I think if you are somebody who does not enjoy speaking, because I think it is one of the greatest fears of many people, working with a coach, I think is a great place to start if you have any concerns about your ability to be effective in speaking. Somebody that's going to help you to put together a logical presentation of some sort, something that looks nice, and something that's going to resonate with the particular audience that you're trying to resonate with. So I highly recommend. I know I hired a speaking coach when I started doing speaking more seriously because I thought it was going to be that thing that really just pushed it over the edge to make sure that you are delivering value to your audience. So I would start there. Beyond that, in terms of like how you do it, I think there's so many different groups that you could try to get in front of. One of the advisors that we're working with, again, that's doing that cyber crimes presentation, is going out to 55 and older communities and engaging with the community manager or somebody who's in the main office for that community that hosts those events, that wants to constantly have stuff on the calendar. And we identified that this was a topic that group cared about. And so it was an absolute no-brainer for the community manager to say, yes, come in and do this. So I think some of it takes a little creative thinking of who are you trying to talk to? And then what do they need versus what you want to talk about? What's the information that's going to be valuable to them that allows you to build that know and trust with them such that they see you as a trusted resource and want to come to you for their financial questions?
Okay. And on the other side, you mentioned the social media. Like which outlets are you seeing as the most effective, or at least the most widely used with the advisors you're working with?
Yeah. This also depends on, again, your target demographic, because if we're looking for stay-at-home moms that are ultimately the ones who control what's happening with the finances of the house, like a lot of them are hanging out in Facebook groups, right? And that would probably be where you would want to spend your time. If you are looking for childless hipster millennials, you probably want to be on Instagram. Those Henrys, they're going to be there. If you're looking for nurses or doctors, even construction professionals, right? Those are titles that are really easy to find on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn's search features, even at a free level, are really strong to try to find a particular title if you're looking for, again, a demographic of a profession. And so it just depends on who you're looking for there for sure. I will say the information, and I think this is like, I have to go look at the source. I'll find it for you after. But LinkedIn, there are so many users on LinkedIn, and so few of them are creating content. And so there's a huge opportunity there still to be somebody who puts out content. A lot of those other platforms are saturated with content creators, but LinkedIn is still hungry for folks that can put out, again, that educational, aspirational content for somebody. So I think that there is definitely an opportunity there. And it's also one of the platforms that, even if you're not in the RA space, most broker dealers are comfortable with LinkedIn versus TikTok.
Yes. Well, I would agree, and our compliance team would agree with that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned LinkedIn too, because I know our team hears at C2P a lot from advisors that are wanting to try. There's a lot of marketing providers out there that have the hooks of use LinkedIn and get unlimited leads. And I would say proceed with caution with a lot of that. Sometimes if it sounds too good to be true, it is. There's a lot of value, as you just mentioned, in LinkedIn that you can do for free. Now, nothing's ever free, but time. If you put the time in and you learn how to use the alerts of, hey, so-and-so, I got the alert that they just retired, they just changed jobs. Those kind of alerts can be extremely powerful. And like you said, those are, other than time, those are free, that you just have to set aside that time and learn how to use those. And it is probably a untapped platform in respect to comparing it to Facebook, where it's a lot of the digital ads and it becomes to how much can you spend?
Yeah, which I think you should spend on marketing, especially if you have the ability to do. But again, I think for us, and I know I've experienced it, for a lot of the folks that we're working with, they don't have that money to spend at the beginning of their career. And so
Right.
we do look for those. What are the things that we can spend time on? And LinkedIn is one of those ones that, again, you don't even have to have a premium profile to be able to do some of these things or to put out content. And then the rest of it is time. Are you willing to engage with other folks that are putting out content? That law of reciprocity comes into play and they start engaging with your content. You can continue to build your connections. You can use that as a way to get them into your newsletter or your system that's going to then drip on them. So there's a lot of free power or time spent power that you can leverage there.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that. The quick free tip from Alanah: make sure you are connected to all of your clients on there. That's the easy button, all right? Make sure you're leaving here and going connecting with all of them, because then it makes it easy for them to share your content. They don't even have to ask for a referral, but they start sharing your content and others see that thought leadership. Alanah, who is the group that you mentioned earlier is doing a good job on the branding side?
Yeah, capital wise, and then their marketing persona is Melanin Money.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Hey, Matt, sorry to jump in,
Yeah.
but on something that you're talking about when it comes to a personal connection is really important to all of your clients and prospects. And why is that? Not only because then they potentially follow, but if they're not following your company page, LinkedIn has these invite credits, I think is what they're called. And the administrator of your accounts, if you already have a first degree connection, meaning you're already connected with someone, you can then simply click on one of these invite buttons and it will automatically send them an invite to follow your company page. So it's just another reason to piggyback off what you're saying is making sure you're following your clients and prospects. And then it makes it that much easier to automate sending. A lot of you may already have 150 to 250 credits. Those expire at the end of the month. So you've got 6 days to use them. If you've never heard of them, you heard of them in Google, LinkedIn Connect invites, I think is what it's called. It's a no-brainer if you're doing that. Sorry to interrupt. I just want to piggyback.
Oh, thank you for bringing that point up. Yeah, we got lots of tips today.
Oh, yeah. I think also a great point in the beginning of that you mentioned, you do want people to follow your company page, right? That's important. You're going to have updates and stuff. But also the most effective marketing on LinkedIn is coming from personal pages, right? So you think about the, again, authenticity of and brand of you as a person. They like you, they get to know you, they see what it would be like to work with you. Your existing clients see what you're up to. And that is the stuff that connects people to you. If you're trying to do that from a company page, it's just, there's not the same warmth and depth to that. So your personal page is where a lot of the content that you're trying to use to connect with the audience should probably come from.
Great. Do you mind sharing an example of an advisor who saw market improvement in their client acquisition or retention due to the changes in marketing, either after transitioning from a broker dealer or just making it a more concerted effort on the marketing side?
Yeah, I had an advisor who I worked with who was at a very conservative broker dealer. And I won't name any names in this discussion, but they were only allowed to work with a certain type of client, which was active duty or former military. And so the marketing was built in that they were going out and doing these presentations on bases that they had access to. But this particular advisor, although he wanted to work with military service members, he also wanted to work with another demographic of clients. And so he was so limited in terms of what he can do. He had actually come to a LinkedIn training that I had done, and pandemic, everybody was trying to figure out how do we get online and do stuff.
Right.
And literally everything in the training, he went back to his compliance and they were like, no, you can't do that. You can't change your tagline on LinkedIn. You can't have a banner. You can't post content other than the pre-approved canned content. I think for him, obviously, he was doing fine in the existing structure. They did have a prescribed marketing system, but because he wanted to work with, his wife was a real estate agent, he wanted to work with real estate agents when he moved to an independent firm. and he got to actually put content out. One, he was having fun, right? Like it was exciting and fun to do. He was working in Canva and building little graphics for the real estate agents of things that were common challenges for them, right? You may have very fluctuating income. You've got taxes to think about. They do a lot of marketing stuff and need resources around that. He got a videographer and a graphic designer and the folks that could be resources for somebody who's a real estate agent. And that was how he went from no real estate agent clients to that being his target demographic and building it out. I don't have his numbers. That would be probably exciting to share, but I just think about how different that experience was for him, having the ability to work with the type of folks he wanted to work with, and also how valuable he was to them, right? He had a specific connection into the things that were keeping them up at night, because that's what was keeping his wife up. And he was able to do, again, that educational, aspirational, entertaining content finally. He used LinkedIn, he used Instagram to do that. And that was really effective in terms of getting in front of that particular ideal client's audience for him.
No, I thank you for sharing that. And I like hearing that story too, because it's, our marketing agency team here talks about that too, is you didn't even jump right into the lead gen portion. That's what was interesting. It's the content. It's the core content and the thought leadership that differentiates that advisor in their target market. In this case, like you said, the real estate. So starting that journey amongst with the core topic, and then it sounds like they built out around that of the video, the social snippets, so things like that. Do you have any other examples like that where probably they took that core topic and you saw them kind of building out the strategy around them for the thought leadership?
Yeah, I think a totally different methodology. I had a woman who she was at an RIA, but it was an RIA that she was an employee of and did not have any control over what she could do. So they actually, I think, had very restrictive policies. And she was somebody who would go out and get her nails done and find a new client. Like she was just that type of advisor personality. But when she launched and went independent, started her own brand, she did these beautiful gift boxes to her centers of influence, which were attorneys and CPAs. And the effort that she put into curating these gift boxes that were just beautiful things, notebooks and pens and things that they might use on a regular basis. I think she put a book in there. That was such a different marketing strategy to use and to go a level up to the folks that were going to refer business to her. But it was so nice. They had not experienced it from anyone before. And it was also not looking for referrals, right? She went in, how can I help you? I've just launched, here's these nice gifts. I want to make sure that we know each other and think of each other, and definitely made an impression on those COIs that she wanted to work with. A gift box of some sort, a curated gift box, I think was an interesting way to market herself to them versus some of the stuff that we're talking about that's the obvious, the social media, the podcasting, the speaking. And that was really effective for her for just standing out against the other advisors who were offering to take them to lunch or sending a Christmas card or something, these beautiful curated boxes that announced and introduced her services to them of what she could do for clients was another effective method that I don't know that I've seen a lot of advisors do something like that.
Yeah, that's quite a differentiator. I guess we're coming to an end, but looking at the current trends that we have going on now, what future marketing strategies do you foresee becoming crucial for the RIA affiliated advisors to stay competitive and continue growing their client base?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we've talked about a lot of them, right? I think everyone has a podcast now, right? It's time to get on that bandwagon. And the reason is that folks want information. They want to be educated. They want to have this aspirational information about what they could be, how they could behave, and they want to be entertained. And the video, the social, the podcast, that's where we get to bring in the entertaining piece of it. A quarterly newsletter is not always entertaining. A market update is definitely not entertaining. And so I think about that and the type of content that you put out of, is this something that my target audience even wants to consume? Like, is it interesting for them? So in terms of future marketing strategies, I do think it's going to have to continue to focus on the authenticity and that personal connection. That's the stuff that differentiates you. I do see more and more of it has happened in the last couple of years, but I think about during COVID when everybody jumped on the bandwagon of trying to do social media, there was so much of this, again, market updates, just canned junk that was coming from some marketing organization or their firm, and clients don't care. And your clients that do care, if they do want those things, you could do something that's personalized to them that has more of the technical updates that they might be interested. I think of an engineer type that might want to know some of that technical stuff, but your clients really want to know, why do you do this? What are the things that drive you? Where's your family? Where's your dogs? Where are the hobbies behind the advisor persona that you put on? Those are the things that really connects them to you. So I think any ways that you can get those out in front of your clients, whether that is podcast, video, newsletter, etc., I think that those are going to continue to be important. And we'll see what happens. We've got so many interesting things in this AI space. I'll be curious to see how that goes. I think it still comes back to some of the folks that we've worked with who've used ChatGPT to write their content. It's not working. So it still has to be this authentic, personal, infused with your brand and your feel for it to work. And so some of the automated stuff, I think, is not going to accomplish that connection.
No, thank you. And I agree. I think that's going to be the challenge, the opportunity and the challenge moving forward is marrying, like, everyone wants to use AI and find automation, make things easier on us. But you got to marry that with the personalization and the authenticity that you mentioned. And that's going to be the way to navigate. Thank you very much for sharing all this. A lot of great information here. I know Elaine put it in the chat, but Alanah, if they want to get in touch with you, what is the best way to reach you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Always happy to connect there. It's a good place to just hang out and see content of each other's and be able to get to know each other better. And of course, always reach out. I think Elaine put my email address in there, an email, a text, or whatever is easiest. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of.
All right. Thank you again for joining us today and sharing everything there. Thank you all for joining us. Next week, don't miss it, our special Halloween episode, The Scary Truth, Lawsuits, Fines, and What Not to Do, with our compliance team joining us on that one. Alanah, this was certainly entertaining, mission accomplished, and we hope to see you all back next week.
Thanks for tuning in. This podcast was brought to you by C2P, an organization whose purpose is to educate, train, grow, and support holistic financial advisors so families can achieve true prosperity. Never miss an episode by subscribing now to discover new resources and strategies. Visit c2penterprises.com to learn how we can help scale and secure your business. At the time of delivery and any subsequent publishing, information was deemed reliable, but is subject to change by the time of listening or viewing. The contents of this piece include options and projections of C2P, are subject to change, and are for informational purposes only. The information provided in this presentation is not intended to be individual investment, tax, or legal advice.